Hey guys, how's it going? Today we are working on our last set of containers that we're going to be decorating for the holidays, for winter. Whatever I have left supplies wise at the end, I'm just going to be popping into the window boxes that we don't have anything in yet, which is, it's likely to be just a bunch of maybe seeded eucalyptus and greens. I think that'll just be a nice soft element up against the house instead of having them empty. But today's project I think is going to be fun. I'm excited about it, a little unsure of how it's going to turn out, but I'm so excited. Okay, so right now what we have looks like kind of a wreck in here. These are the 2 iron urns that we have by our front door where we just hung the wreath up that we made from things we foraged from the garden. What I'm creating, and I've already kind of started here, in fact, I'm going to troubleshoot on this first one. So as soon as I'm done explaining kind of what my vision is, I'm just going to set a camera up and just kind of capture whatever. And then maybe we'll slow down on the second one and I'll do a little bit of a closer look. I've got 5 stakes in here. Well, first off, I put some soil in here, topped them up. I got to add a little more soil there. And then I popped 5 of these green stakes. They're just wood stakes. Correction, they are bamboo stakes. These are a 4-foot size that you just get in this big package here. I zip tied them together at about the height that I wanted them and then cut off the tops. There was only about maybe 8 inches or so left up at the top because they do sink quite a ways down in the containers. So it's pretty solid. Then I'm going to take some chicken wire, which I have here. That is wide though. I'm gonna have to go look and see if I've got, oh, you know what? I can steal the chicken wire off the grass. That's what I'll do. So we'll take the chicken wire. We're going to attach it to part of the topiary. And then before we completely close it up, we're going to stuff it full of moss. And then we'll wrap the chicken wire all the way around, make sure it's completely covered. There'll be moss on the inside. I'll wet the moss down. And then we're going to attach a bunch of greens and a bunch of fake fruit. I've got pears, you guys, a bunch of pears. There are red ones and yellow ones. I do have apples in here somewhere. Apples is what I was actually kind of hoping to go for, but I couldn't find very many. Are you guys familiar with I think if you Googled Williamsburg fruit topiaries, it'll bring up an image of topiaries that are, you know, shaped like a cone, I guess, and they've got pineapple and oranges and apples and pears and all kinds of fruit on them. Typically they're inside the house. They're so pretty, and this is going to be kind of a take on that, but I wanted to use artificial fruit so that if this does turn out pretty, I'll be able to use the fruit from year to year. I wasn't committed enough to get fake greens for that purpose. I have leftover greens from the bottom of our Hartley Christmas tree I'm going to be using, things like that. So we'll use real greens, fake fruit. I'm going to be using pine cones. But I'm just going to be wiring all of these things into the topiary form that has the wet moss inside. So hopefully that will all freeze into place and keep them fresh, the greens anyway. And then I do have some fairy lights as well. So these are the ones from Gardener's Supply. They're plug-in, which is great. Little copper wire. So maybe we'll weave that around our topiary. Whenever you're working with something fake though, like fake fruit, it can go one of 2 ways. It can either look really cool or it could look really bad. So I'm thinking that if I have to get my gold leaf kit out and add some gold leaf to some of the pears to kind of gild them a little bit, that would look really neat. This is an experiment, but I'm excited to share what I find here. Let's run over the supplies real quick before I get started in on this project. So of course our pot soil, the greens from the bottom of the Hartley tree, the fake fruit, the chicken wire. We've got pine cones in this crate, and I've got various sizes. We've got like normal size there. I've got cones off of our spruce tree right here. And then I've got little alder cones in here. Like little sprays of alder cones that came off of my parents' tree. Aren't those cute? This is the moss I have. My parents order this in bulk. It's a bulk sheet moss. We'll wet it down today and it'll freeze in place and we'll be able to use it next year. When you don't expose the moss to sun and it's only being used in this one purpose and it's not going to get wet over and over and over again just this first time, it should preserve just fine and it'll dry out and be great to use again in more projects next season. Our bamboo stakes, we do have some greens pittosporum. I don't think I'm going to use any of that, but maybe some seeded eucalyptus. We've got a couple of noble fir boughs left in this box. And then we've got zip ties, a ton of zip ties. Also got Felco 2s and 24 gauge paddle wire. Okay, everybody cross your fingers. Let's get this first one done. first one is almost done. I'm super happy with how they're coming together. I'm surprised, actually. Very surprised. I think they're so pretty, and I'm a little bit sad that these are real greens. I mean, it does make it look really nice, but if they were artificial, then I could save these from year to year, which would be great. So maybe that'll be a project we can tackle later on. I do like to look for artificial greens after Christmas because you can get them so much cheaper, and I like to stock up. So that might be a project we stock up for. The chicken wire went on that form super easy. I stuffed it full of wet moss. I did decide to wet it down first instead of wetting it down second. I don't know why I thought to do that in the first place, because you do want to get it wet because it'll make it heavier and make it settle. So if you can kind of pack it in wet, then you know it's all going to fit and it's not going to, start to sink in there. And then I just started weaving pieces of the evergreen boughs in, just all the way up the form to where it was kind of covered. I did start in by putting them in flat so that the evergreens were coming out more like tree shaped. And then I figured out that that wasn't going to work because in order to nest these fruit, which they're not super big, I was going to need to go a little bit more flat against the topiary form. But once all the evergreens were in, and I only had to zip tie, I think 2 in because the branches were a little bit stiff and I needed them to lay against the form. I just kind of weaved them underneath the chicken wire. It was so easy. And then I'm just hot gluing everything else in. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? It definitely has presence. It makes a statement. It's colorful, but unique. It's just not another, container full of branches and greens, which is pretty, but it's fun to have something different. I do love that I can save these pears and pine cones, which I will. I'll just clip them right off the evergreens, and we'll use them when we make these again. I haven't put any lights around them yet. The lights I have that copper wire, which might look okay, but I didn't want to add an extra color and that shine because it does attract your eye. And because there's so much going on here, I'm not sure that I want to put lights on these. Maybe we can experiment once it's dark. So I'll just alternated between the yellow pears and the red pears and then the big pine cones, and then went in with the little spruce cones in between. I didn't put the alder cones all the way throughout. I might, but I feel like there's a lot going on already. Let me show you the back. So that was the front that we just looked at. So I skipped this part just because I didn't want to use the product. This is going straight up against a wall. And so long as you can see it from this side and from this side with stuff on it, I don't think that you'll actually know that the whole thing isn't done. Again, it's something we'll have to see once I put them in place by the front door, but I'm just so happy. It's so cute. All right, so let's get this second one done. I will go ahead and put them up by the front door so that in the end, when we take a look at them together, they will be in the spot where they're gonna stay for a while. I love how these turned out. Love them. Look at them. Oh my goodness. Oh, so fun. And they match the wreath we just made with the oranges and the rose hips. We've got kind of the same colors going on. They flank that door beautifully. They're the right proportion, the right scale, just, oh, so fun. So I did end up finishing around the sides and the back because they have to. I kind of didn't consider that the lip of the pot comes over so far from the actual arrangement that you can see a little bit more behind them than I thought initially. So like you can see here, that there are some things. I actually brought those up after we placed them and just popped a few more items toward the back. I need to grab a couple greens to puff this area out just a little bit. But oh, I just think they are so fun. We have carriage lights and then all the Christmas lights, which really illuminate this spot during the evening. So I just don't think lights are necessary. And I do think that the copper wire would kind of fight your eye. You would notice the strand of lights around it. And I don't think I really want that with how much is going on. And I'm sorry if you can't see them very well right now. There's a lot of shadows going on. And I am going to grab, well, see, there's a little bit of moisture coming out from the bottom of that one. It got fairly warm today. It was breezy, but I think it was high 30s, maybe even 40 this afternoon. Definitely warm in the greenhouse. The heater didn't kick on at all when I was in there. It was that warm. But I think it was warm enough for whatever moisture was at the bottom of these pots, because there was a little bit of soil left from what we had going on this summer left at the bottom. But there was enough moisture to where it's sort of coming out of the bottom. So I may have to saucer these again, which I didn't want to have to do, because with these iron pots, I don't have saucers that match. I use a square plastic, clear plastic ones, which not awesome. A good solution to save our wood, but I'll keep an eye on this. If the water kind of stops, it's going to cool down here after tomorrow. Looks like we're going to have like temperatures in the single digits, and our highs are like in the teens. So we won't have any moisture issues up there if that's going on. For now, I'm just toweling it up. And the other fun part is I got these fruit, and I don't know if I mentioned it already, but I got them at a huge discount. So I got them all at Joann, and they were discounted, but then they were discounted again and in the back. You know how they have like the clearance bin? It's always like a huge mess. You kind of have to rifle through. They had a bin of these fruit, these pears, a few apples. Initially, when I thought of doing this project, I was going to do all red apples, which I think would be really fun. But I think the pears having the two colors of pears adds a lot of color. I also like the shape of the pears, and they somehow maybe look a little bit more wintry than apples. A red apple topiary might look more like fall, like school time, September, October, maybe. I don't know. I think either way it would have been pretty. And I also wanted to mention, like, when I got to the greens on the topiary form, it does look kind of just like a Christmas tree. And so you might think, well, I could just use a Christmas tree. But the problem with that is that there's too much openness. You need like the fluff, the little fluff on the outside, but then a solid base right behind it. So you've got something to rest those fruit and pine cones on, something to glue them to. I mean, there's a lot of fluff coming through, between all of these things. And I did feed some of these pieces in after I was done putting the fruit and the pine cones on. But the fruit and pine cones, they're solid, like they're sitting on a solid surface, and that would be incredibly hard to do on just a normal shaped tree. You'd almost have to hang them more like ornaments, and that's really not the look I wanted. And that is going to do it for today's project, you guys. I'm so happy with how these came out. So happy, especially because I was feeling so not confident. And anytime I work with non-natural materials, my confidence level goes down just a little bit, just because they're not real. And a lot of times you can tell. I mean, there are levels. There are like really cheap artificials that look bad, and then there are some artificials that look pretty darn convincing. But either way, natural materials just feel a little bit more at home to me, but I'm happy to know that these pears and the pine cones, those things, and the topiary forms, if I wanted to leave those with the moss stuffed in them, we could reuse them again exactly the same way. I could, though, use artificials, like I said, and then have them from year to year, but maybe we want to do different things from year to year with these supplies. I don't know. You also don't have to use moss to stuff the topiary forms. You could use leaves. If you still have exposed leaves, straw, that kind of thing. Like, just stuff it full of something that will hold just a tiny bit of moisture and just really keep your form solid. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next video.